Anyway,
Okay,
right.
let's go. Today, we are joined again by somebody who's become one of my favourite humans. His name is Chris Sibley. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Jim.
You run the OLLIE Foundation along with a group of other people.
Absolutely.
Now, the OLLIE, you explain what the OLLIE Foundation is.
So the OLLIE Foundation is a suicide prevention charity started by myself and two other parents back in 2016. We'd all met at bereavement support. We'd all lost sons to suicide. And at the time, we just decided we wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
And just for clarity, OLLIE stands for One Life Lost is Enough. Now,
I just want to say, right, so you've been on before,
Yeah.
right, and since then you've kind of been, I don't know whether you know this, I think I've told you, but you've been like my charity guru. So every time I drop the ball or I need advice, I'm on the phone bothering you going, what do I do now?
it's not a bother though, but I know what you mean.
And but what's amazing is the fact that from our podcast we've almost built this little community of charity people where, you know, we were just talking before the camera was on apparently, but about the fact that I do a group on your manor in St Albans and you've had a shout out for it, and you know we can all support each other, which, let's face it, is what community is about.
It is, mate, and it's not trying to sound like a cliche, but it's genuinely about helping people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And all of us in this room, that's what we're doing. And if you can help someone, why wouldn't you?
That-
You know?
There's a lot of people in the world who don't subscribe to that, though. Is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole. But while we were talking about, you know, there have been committees or societies, without naming names, who have made my life almost impossible.
Yeah.
And it's because that they feel they have no control or power in the situation, and ignore the fact that you're helping people.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about the struggle that we're in? You know, it's of our own making because we chose to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I did choose. I think I know this sounds a bit shit, but I think I was supposed to do this because I fit into it.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the struggle we have to go through for grants and money and all of that?
To be honest, it needs sorting because we're both charity organisations, and like all of us, we meet loads of grassroots charities. You speak to every single one, their biggest struggle is finance. Yeah. Right? With all of them, finance is
regardless of what brilliant work they're doing.
Yeah, the work's phenomenal, and the issue is always finance. And the problem is, my view is, charities are like the fifth emergency service, right? Nobody knows they exist until you can't get what you need from the state. Then you lean into the charity sector. Yep. If you're lucky, where you live, there is support in the thing you need it to be. Yep. But quite often there isn't. No. Because you're relying on a charity. So you're into a postcode lottery. And so I haven't got a plan of how they do this, but grassroots charities should have some form of central funding. Yep. Because like you do and we do, in the communities where the grassroots work, they really make a difference really quickly. If something happens, they can react and respond really quickly. Yeah. The national charities are phenomenal for lots of things, but if something happens in a little town in the middle of Sussex, they're not going to spin round on a sixpence and put something in place to help people. That's the grassroots charities. Yeah,
I think also grassroots is important in as much as that. I mean, I feel like, I mean, all right, I don't live here, but I've been in this shop for 13 years. Yeah. And I know a lot of people around here, and a lot of people come to me for specific help through Coffee and Coping or through Hope and Action, the addiction meeting, and lots of people know about us. Yeah. So it's more beneficial to the people around me because they know I'm local. Yeah. I can help them rather than reaching out to, I can't think of a big name without offending anybody, but a bigger charity who can't help them in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, the bigger the charity, the more hurdles you have to jump.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is starting to get annoying. You know, I've got clients who desperately need therapy, who have been referred to, you know, through Signet House and different things, you know, who are the mental health things, and the doctors are failing them. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not throwing eggs at anyone in particular, but, you know, mine are getting referrals that are half done and they can't act on them. Yeah. And these poor people are waiting to hear, and they never will. Yeah. And it's just, I think if we get to the stage where grassroots charities can actually have a referral status above and beyond in their area, even that alone would help.
Yeah, you're starting to get some of that with social prescribing. Yeah. Right. So that they might signpost you to, for example, we do an online art class, Zentangle, an online Pilates. Organisations might socially prescribe that to someone. Oh, this is available. Yeah. But it's not really formalised. People only know about it because I do what you do. Attend loads of different meetings with loads of different people and tell them what's available so they can share it.
Social prescribers through the GP, I have found, There's a lady called Fliss who I'm working with at the moment. She's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of my clients are in her GP stable. So I'll be ruthless. I go to her and go, Fliss, who do I speak to?
Yeah.
And she goes, you don't, I will.
Right.
Because she's in the GP.
Yeah, she's in it.
And she has no power. This is the problem. She has no power, but she can talk to the right person.
Yeah.
So you just got to hope that GP actually gives a shit.
Yeah.
Because if they do, then all of a sudden help is
exactly.
You know,
Help
is there. And also, you know, if you don't know what a social prescriber is, go to your GP. If you are lonely, if you are feeling depressed but it's not, you know, too far, or you've got no direction in life, a social prescriber will find you somewhere to go or find you a service. And social prescribers bring clients to Coffee and Coping now.
Yeah.
So working with them, you know, this family fun day that we're doing on 26th of July is all about bringing everyone that we work with together.
Yeah.
So, you know,
community.
Exactly.
Right, so.
Building a community.
Yeah.
And more and more, and every day, you know, I work with the vicar, I work with social prescribers, I work with GPs to a certain degree, I walking off the street.
Yeah.
But as a whole, over time, we are finding that we are having a community. You know, we ourselves are in the centre of this new community where people help each other. Case in point, there's a girl who comes to us called Jasmine.
Yeah.
Last week or Easter, she did a raffle just off her own back, right? And she said, "Is it all right to do this?" I went, "Yeah, of course. You can do what you want as long as it's not putting too much pressure on you." Right? Now, she was validated by the fact that, one, I agreed she could do it, which is odd but amazing.
But,
and then she goes, "Right, I don't need you to buy anything. I've got the book. I've got this. The only thing is, can we have a T-shirt, a mug, and a coaster?"
Yeah.
Well, I just was like, "What for?" Yeah. And she went, "The prize." I went, "Oh, yeah. What else do you need?" She goes, "No, I'm going to buy." And I went, "You're not going to buy anything." Right. So I bought the Easter eggs, and then we put in a T-shirt, which Simon from Underground Music, who makes all of our merch, he gave us for free today. And he sent the postage as well and did all that for us and packaged it. So thank you, Simon. Now, out of that, she raised £201.
Mate, good job.
She decided to
Just
do
because,
it. Right, but and one person said to me, not in disparaging, but like, "Oh, 200 quid, that's good, but is that enough?" I'm like, "Do you get it? 200 quid is enough to run 2 full weeks of groups."
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Jim, you've hit a really crucial point. Whenever you speak to loads of people about supporting charity, lots of people, you'll hear often they say, "I can only give you a £5." And I always say, never say only. Seriously, with a grassroots charity, every pound makes a difference. So don't say only and don't say just.
Well, you know? Also, that's a really good point, because having just done the sponsor walk, right? So someone gave me a £5 and then sent me an apology message going, "I haven't got any more." And I'm like, okay, look at the reality of your £5.
Yeah.
The biggest donation from on the app was 100 quid from my sister, who supported me because I'm a brother.
Yeah.
The rest of them are all £10, £20, £50.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to do anything.
No.
So that £5, that buys the coffee for a whole week in all of our groups.
Yeah.
So thank you. And they were like, oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I went, that's the root.
Exactly.
If you give me 50p, collectively, the 50p's together all make the big
really
thing.
makes a difference in a grassroots.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I have a lot. In a grassroots, give them a tenner. That every bit of that tenner is going to be used on something that you want it to be used on.
Exactly that. And also, I can honestly hold my hand on my heart and say that we're not paying office fees, we're not paying phone lines, we're not buying cars
yet.
Sorry, but you can't have it yet. But yeah, the agreement is when we start our church, under the guise of that, we'll both have Bentleys. All right, that's the way it works. It works for a lot of churches.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I'm finding more and more is that a lot of charities can be a little bit ungrateful, but they don't mean to be, but they're always asking for more. Always asking for more. You know that what's that Pudsey thing? Children in need. Right. How much of that gets to where it's going? And I question that, and a lot of people have. But with us, if you want to come and see our bank balance, we're completely transparent. Come and have a look, see what we're doing, because you know the most payments are to the people who run the groups, right? To do that, and also we're paying our insurance every month, and you know all the things we have to do. And the website,
all the core costs that we chatted about earlier, and all those things.
It's lots of money.
But
every month we manage to make it somehow. And what's amazing as well, while I'm looking at a camera, thank you to everyone who did give to us at any point, be it £1, £5, £500. The amount doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is you trusted us with your money, so thank you for that. Before we get distracted,
Yes, mate. Yeah.
my prescription safe plan.
Yes.
There are medications that you would not believe that can give you suicidal ideation.
Exactly.
So
there's a lot more than you imagine.
Well,
a lot more than I imagined.
Well, tell us, because that piece of paper that I'm looking at, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, that amazes me.
Yeah.
So let's go through it.
Okay. So this first started during lockdown. So during lockdown, this didn't exist, prescription safe plan, and we started to get calls from parents who had children at uni, so everyone's locked down. And the children at uni are also adults, so they can be prescribed medication and nobody else knows. Yeah. And they're trapped in their halls of residence. And we start to get calls from parents whose young person at uni was struggling, had an appointment on Zoom with a doctor, right, and were prescribed antidepressants. And very shortly afterwards had tried to take their own life. So we had one call about that, and then over a period of months we had a few calls along a similar vein. Then that started to make us think, this is a bit odd. What's happening? There's there's a common link here. There's clearly medication. Then we had a similar call, but in this instance, the young man died. So actually ended up taking his own life within a few weeks of starting antidepressants. So we dived into, we need to understand what's going on. And if you look at the literature that comes with it, and one I'm thinking of in my head, it actually says 1 in 200 chance of suicidal thoughts. Right. Now, it's important to say, for 199 people, the medication is exactly the right thing because it's a 1 in 200 chance. So 199 people, it's fine, it does what it should. But there's a 1 in 200 chance it could give you suicidal thoughts, amongst many other side effects. So we pulled together our prescription safe plan version 1. This is like version 2 at the minute. So version 1, and it meant that when anyone was prescribed medication, with specifically antidepressants at the time, where it had a known side effect of suicidal thoughts, the prescriber would take them through that document, or somebody who cares for them, husband, wife, anybody could do that with them. And it's really simple because it highlights one of the side effects of this drug can be suicidal thoughts. It states it. So there's no ambiguity. There's no, you might feel worse before you feel better. Yeah. They know. But it also tells them what to do if they experience it, which is go back to your GP. Yeah. Right, to get a mid review.
Now, so my own what's the word? Experience. Yeah. Was with sertraline, right? So it's well documented that I took that. Yeah. To start, nobody explained any side effects apart from dizziness when you get up, and also disrupted sleep pattern. Yeah. And I had that. Also, the fourth week in, I woke up and thought, I'm not worth it. This is not worth it. I'm not worthy. Right. Did all that, and then because I understand the field I'm in, I went, wait a minute. That's not rational. Yeah. That's not me. This is medication. Yeah. Now, I'm lucky. I live in that world.
Yeah, you had that knowledge.
Yeah, and I had that knowledge before. But if you, and I meant to say this to you before, if you don't know anything about it, you're not going to know that you might wake up one morning and think strongly enough that you're not worth life. Yep. And then take your life.
It's exactly
and it's not, I mean, I get 1 in 200, but if you look at that on a bigger scale, 1 in 200 is a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, can you use your prop and show the reality of that?
Well, let's tell you a little bit more, because there was a step after that. So we had to make sure this is in line with NICE guidelines, otherwise no one can use it. Yeah. So once we created it, we lent into various GPs, people in public health and stuff to make sure it did. And it actually, in this particular area, exceeds NICE guidelines if you actually look at the NICE guidelines. So it works. So that was the first piece, antidepressants, and it's actually been commissioned as part of a project with public health in Hertfordshire, and rolled out to hospitals, GPs and pharmacists. So that's amazing. Great. That's great. But then, and which is why we're doing another version of this, we start to understand that there's lots of other drugs that have this known side effect. So I'll give you some of them. Montelukast for asthma. Roaccutane for adult acne, finasteride for male pattern baldness. Last week I was sent some literature about an anti-epilepsy medication where it says risk of suicidal thoughts. Lots of ADHD meds, lots of antipsychotics, and there's even been links to people taking their own life on doxycycline, which has been around since the 60s. Doxycycline. So the prop you mentioned, when we realised all of this, we're like, Christ, this list of drugs keeps getting longer and longer. Yeah. Now, at the start, a lot of people said to us, you're just anti-medication, We said, no, we're the opposite. Medication is vitally important, but so is the safe, informed use of that medication for the reason you said. If you don't know a possible side effect is you might get aggressive, if 4 weeks after starting it, you're suddenly smashing your house up, your wife's doing a runner because she thinks you've lost the plot and it's linked to the meds, but nobody knows.
I think. Sorry to interrupt,
That's
but
right,
being informed like this is amazing. Because if somebody turns around and goes, "It's all right, mate. It's the medication. Just hang in there. This is what's going on." You loop back round to your GP. Now the GP won't necessarily just take you straight off it, but they can address it. What's really worrying is anti-psych medication can make you have suicidal thoughts. And if you think about the reality of that, it's to stop exactly that.
Exactly.
God, so that's a minefield. It's horrendous.
It is. But then what I say to people when I talk about it, because there's so many things I've learned, right? Because I'm no expert. I'm from a shop fitting background. We talked about that before, right? So every day's a school day, right?
Yeah.
So I speak at various places.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these medications I've mentioned are prescribed by specialists. So this one I've got the prop for, which I'll chat through in a minute, is prescribed by a specialist.
Right.
But then the repeat gets picked up through your GP, but you have to go and be reviewed because this particular one could damage your liver and do all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
Right. So.
But sorry to cut into that, but that specialist is a specialist in what that drug is supposed to be resolving.
Yes.
Rather than a specialist on any of the other things.
Exactly that. Right. So I was talking at an event in Bedford, for what it's worth, talking about lived experience, why OLLIE started, but part of that is prescription safe plan and doing what I just said, talking about the medications.
Yeah.
Now, because I knew the person who'd arranged this event, it was great, and I had a communication line. What I didn't know, her mum was in the audience, and her mum was a GP. Okay, so I didn't know that. So I'm talking about what I'm saying, and the lady who'd invited me contacted me a couple of weeks later and said, my mum, who is a GP, didn't know that Monty Lucas could give people suicidal thoughts. Right. Because she's not a specialist, she's a GP, and it's prescribed by a specialist.
Yeah.
But what her mum was able to do when she heard me talk was link it to a patient who'd been in to see her about a week before, saying she'd started to struggle with her mental health. Right. And the GP knew that 4 weeks before this person had been put on Monty Lucas. So she got the patient back in for a med review, did a full review, changed her meds, and the lady's fine.
Right.
But the GP only knew because she happened to be in a hall where I happened to be talking about it. It's wild. Is
there any kind of forward plan to educate GPs? Will they take that?
Yeah, what we're looking to do now is we're educating people because our prescription safe plan is now available freely download from the website in the 16 most commonly spoken languages in the country. Amazing. And we're also doing an easy read version for people who might have challenges with reading lots of text. Okay, so we're doing that, and we're kind of pushing it in from the ground level up.
Yeah.
Because that's the way you have to do it, really. Yeah. Trying to go from the top down, there's all sorts of issues. So we're going from the ground level up. I was up in Liverpool recently, and just another example, and I was with John Moore's Uni Hospital. Right. They're doing lots of things, seeing other charities, meeting some guys who do another podcast in Liverpool, funnily enough.
Right.
Now, one of them is a psychologist, and we were chatting about some of the medication. And on this podcast he said, happened to my wife. I said, what did he? He said, exactly what you've just said. But because I work in the space, I knew. We were out shopping, me and the missus and our young'un, and my wife just suddenly stormed off. And she's normally really calm. And I said to my daughter, I said, what's wrong with mum? Anyway, he caught up with her and she said, I feel like just jumping in front of that lorry.
Right.
It was the medication. But because he worked in that space, they came off the meds, and he said within 2 days she was back to normal. Yeah. But he knew because he works in the space. If that had just been Joe Bloggs and his missus, you've got no idea. Yeah.
The other thing is coming off the other end as well. So my real problem, when I, being me, came off sertraline my own way. So I dropped it 50 mils, and then thought, I've got to drop it another 50, and then went, balls, and dropped the whole lot. Driving to work one Saturday morning, and I am suicidal. I'll tell you that now, and I've said this freely, I think, before. So I'm driving, and I'm thinking, okay, the reason that nothing's working at home is because I'm not good enough. I'm gonna go, and if I go, that means that my son and my wife are then free to go. And I was listening to myself talking, and my rational brain went, hold on a minute. And I phoned Laura Drain, who is a psychotherapist, and I went, okay, I need to talk to you. And she went, what's the matter, mate? And I went, I am literally suicidal. And she went, you prick. And I went, what? And she went, you've come off the sertraline in one go, haven't you? And I went, what? Yeah, I have. And she went, right, so. And Laura and I, by the way, she is an amazing psychotherapist, but she knows me inside and out. And I had talked to her about coming off, right? So she knew, right? And also she knows that if she goes, well, if you've got this and then blah, blah, and the percentages, blah, I've fallen asleep before she's finished. So she just she shocked me into thinking, okay, I'm back in the room. Yeah. And then I went, right, so let me just run through this. Because I've jumped out of it, my body's, and she said the half-life for these antidepressants is so long, it could be up to 3 months, and it can still affect you. So, no, I didn't know that, but what I did have is a community at the end of the phone, because I bang on about a community quite a lot. But Laura as well knows me very well, and I trust her. So then her saying that, I then just got on with my day. I came up here and I was fine, absolutely fine, because I had explained knowledge. I had knowledge put back in my head going, this isn't you being not good enough, this is the medication.
It's the result of tapering off, or not tapering.
If you had have tapered off like you were told to, you idiot, you'd feel better. Right, so knowing that is great, but again, why should you know just because somebody's told you that you need to taper off gently, you need to do this and all that? If you feel good and you know you're in a headspace that's worth it, you should, like in theory, if you're like me, you will just come off because you're arrogant enough to believe you'll be fine. So that's scary. But so having learnt that with the knowledge that I have anyway, because I work in the space, it's even more scary to talk to you about this because people don't know what I know.
No. And there's other stuff I've learned. Again, no medical background, so everything's, I think, what? That can't be right? So it was always perceived for years, I understand, that you start the medication, if you get side effects, which normally start, I believe, within about the first 8 weeks, if they're going to start, 8 to 9 weeks. But when you stop the medication, all the side effects stop. There was a big report came out last year saying, well, that isn't the case, actually. That isn't always the case.
Often the withdrawal of it actually brings the symptoms back, which sometimes then makes people go back on the meds, and then they're stuck in that trap of
incredible loop.
And then I've met lots of people who were put on antidepressants for whatever the valid reason was, to get them in a place so they could deal with the thing that made them need the medication in the first place. When I meet them, I've been on them 15 years. I've been on 20 years. And some of them I've tried to come off, and it made me so ill trying to come off of them, I'm back on them. I haven't got an answer to that, but that's what I'm finding when I talk to people.
Harder to come off. Without being rude to those people. You've got to, if you acknowledge that that's going to potentially cause a problem, as Jim says, if you've got someone holding your hand, figuratively,
be aware of it,
and saying, there's a chance you're going to feel rough, but the answer isn't to get back on that.
Don't pivot. Is the key. Whatever forward momentum you've got, stay on that path, because the more you zip back or you move forward in a different way, you're gonna have different evaluations and different realities. You're gonna have a different set of realities each time. I'm very lucky to know the people I know to sort me out. Now I will say this for sertraline, right? When I was on it, I was waking up and puking every morning because of my anxiety. It was tangible. I was fucked. There's no two ways about it. So, 6 months?
I don't know, because you came off before I realised you'd come off. But
everyone realised after the fact. But I mean, basically, I was on it for 6 months and then realised I was in a really good place, but I felt nothing. So nothing affected me. Now, I can't do this job. I can't be the leader of Coffee and Coping.
You have to feel.
I need to feel empathy, if nothing else. And I didn't give a shit about anything. So, and that's why I realised I should come off. Now, obviously, normal human beings would have gone to their GP and said, right, I need to come off. But also, if you look at Rob Clydesdale, who was on this show a year ago, he has gone through every single different type of antidepressant. He was on some for 3 years, he was on some for 5 years, but something works and then it stops working. Because everyone's different mental health procedure is different. Like, the way my mental health works is not the same as his. So, I can say, this really works for me. So I went on sertraline because my brother's on it, and it really helped him. And I'll hold my hands up. It really did help me for a little while. But if I hadn't have come off it, I'd have been so stuck that I'd have never been able to sort that out. So hearing that there is now going to be some kind of full education for people, can that be countrywide? Can that get?
That's what we need to, because what we found is, I think probably because at the start, everyone was, "Oh, you're anti-medication."
How can you see that?
I know, it's strange.
Can I ask, like, without naming names, who was saying these things?
People in professional capacities.
Are we talking?
Is what I say. Yeah, in professional capacities.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Loads of them are like, "This is fantastic," and we're really on board. But then there's others who are like, "Oh, you're just anti-medication."
But are those people? Could you accuse them of being pro-medication then?
Yeah, possibly.
Because there is an argument that Rob, for example, well, I don't know if he's tried therapy or not, but there is a fairly significant school of thought that says, well, your mental health issue isn't a chemical imbalance in your brain. It isn't going to get fixed by a pill. You need to find out where that source of trauma is, for example.
The source of trauma or the main influence of the way you think.
And you know what? Some of it, to answer your point, Lee, as well, I think some of it is because it could be perceived as we're trying to criticise the job you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not. We're trying to make sure people are informed and safe. So I do get that. But once people get to understand it, they're like, no, this makes sense and it's good and it works. Because what happens a lot is everything we've just chatted about. Whenever I talk about this, and I think of loads of places, they want to talk about the charity, but I always have people at the end want to talk to me about this. And like another example of a guy who heard me talk about it, a young guy approached me and said, "My God, I'm so glad I hear you talk about this." Why is that? Yesterday, my wife said she doesn't want to be here anymore. 2 weeks ago, she started a new antidepressant. Same scenario. Go back to your doctors, ask for a med review. Yeah. Long story short, they did and everything was fine.
Yeah.
But he only knew because he happened to hear. Now, there is more and more being stated in the press about this now. And particularly last year, and I always forget the guy's name, he's linked to the royal family, the Duchess of Kent's family. Is it Thomas Kingston, I think it was? I might have the name wrong. He took his own life. And his wife very publicly came out and linked it to the medication. Very publicly in the press.
Well, horrible circumstances, but really, really generous of her to do that.
Exactly, yeah. So she did come out because her view was it was on his medication. He'd been on one, had tapered right off, was due to start another one, or had just started another, something like that. But then again, as I was coming over here today, my wife said to me, actually, there's another story about him today showing what's also added to the pressure about financial debt. Right. Which for men, if men are prepared to admit what affects their mental health, I think the number's about 38% of men say the number one thing is finance worries.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you that. Most of my anxiety was, I can't pay the bills, I can't feed my family, I can't get out of this debt cycle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if that's just me, then that's got to be quite a few others.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we spread the word on this? How do we get... So are GPs... there's got to be a GP governing body, is there?
We're talking to different people about that because I don't really understand how that structure works. So we're working with public health locally, and it's been rolled out, like I said, as part of this program called the Befriending Program that they did. But because we're going from the bottom up, if I meet somebody who runs a PCN network, like 3 GPs practices, like the lady I mentioned in Bedford, once she heard it, she runs 3 practices. So she's now using that in her practices.
Also,
can you just go through that?
Yeah, so if I go through this, so I say to everybody now, any medication you get, read this or get someone to read it for you.
Yeah.
Because you want to know all the side effects. So forget the fact, this is an adult acne medication with a known side effect, it can give you suicidal thoughts. But I'll just pick some randomly because you'd absolutely want to know, right? And so would your partner. So let me find one. You can become very violent and aggressive. Okay? Very violent and aggressive. It's rare, 1 in 1,000 cases. But somebody is that one.
Still happens,
right?
Yeah.
So imagine it's me and I'm on this medication, I'm normally placid. Yeah. And then 4 weeks down the line, I'm smashing the house up. My wife is going to think I've lost the plot. She is not going to think it's linked to the medication.
Yeah, no. And also, right, I know that we just started this little journey with that, but look at the knock-on effects of that, right? You are a father, you are a husband, you are Mr. Normal, your kids and your wife, you're all in a loving relationship. You kick off and break something, right? All of a sudden, your wife is then frightened of you. Yeah. Your kids are then frightened of you. At the very least, your wife's going to be combative, going, "What are you? Have you lost it?"
Yeah.
The knock-on effects of that, because there are going to be people who are watching this going, "Yeah, well, all right, he's smashed something up. What difference?" I'll tell you what difference it makes, right? So I was in a situation with my wife before where, and I wasn't on medication, but we were having a row, and I slipped with a dog bowl. Skylar's dog bowl, right? And it hit the back of the sofa and smashed.
Right.
And that's been our go-to joke now forever, which is like, oh, yeah, don't get a dog bowl. That's why all the dog bowls now are metal and very light. Right, but if that had been in that situation and Sid hadn't known and that it was an accident, I could have been in real trouble. Right, so have a little think about the knock-on effects of just that one thing.
Just that on this long two-sided list.
Most of that is side effects.
Most of this is side effects, and it starts. Just to give a quick idea, give you a couple. So, anybody this is adult acne medication.
Yeah.
You cannot have children when you're on this. Women can't take it. It affects the fetus. Even men can't take it because the damage will go into the lady through the sperm. Right, so if you're planning to start a family, you cannot be on this medication.
And this is this is for acne. This is for spots.
Adult acne, adult acne. Right, so and that's what the first side is mainly all about. Is all about stuff to do with pregnancy and everything else. Right.
Okay.
So the violence one you have now. If you're into keep fit, right? Do you keep fit? You start this medication. Bones and muscles frequency not known, right? But they know it happens. Muscle weakness can potentially be life-threatening, right? Maybe associated with trouble moving arms and legs, painful, swollen, bruised areas of the body, dark-coloured urine, reduced or no urine. That's just one other side effect. So if you're somebody who goes to the gym, you normally get a bit of DOMS and a bit of aches and pains.
Yeah.
You're on this medication, it gets worse. You're probably going to think, I've just overdone it at the gym.
Yeah.
Right? But there it is as a side effect. And you kind of go on and on and on. Can affect your eyesight. Right, can cause blurred vision. If the blurred vision doesn't stop, go to your doctor straight away. No crap, Sherlock.
Yeah, as long as you can see your way there.
As long as you can see.
Holy shit!
And it just goes on and on.
I need to stress what that is. That is adult acne medication. That is not sertraline. That is not any other antidepressant. That's nothing that combats anything other than acne.
Yeah.
And in there, you can damage fetuses.
Yeah.
You can have violent tendencies.
Yeah.
You can also have suicidal thoughts, amongst other things.
Lots of other things. Now, this would be prescribed by a specialist.
Yeah.
So the chances are he will have told you some of these.
Yeah.
Right? He will probably have told you about the suicidal thoughts one because he's a specialist. But he's not going to sit and read through all of them with you.
Right.
So unless you read it yourself, which most people go, chuck that in the bin. The box says take one twice a day. I'll take one twice a day.
You normally just move out of the way to get
the
I'll be brutally honest, right? I take quite a lot of medication, as we all know, right? I don't read anything.
No.
I'm going to now.
You're going to tonight.
I'm going to. Right. So metformin for type 2 diabetes, right? I know fully, and I'm fully informed that if I didn't eat as much, I wouldn't be this fat and I would lose diabetes. Yeah, I'm still here in this situation.
Well, what you eat then, the volume, but
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but I've never looked at the side effects of metformin because that's a pill by my doctor. Damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's scary.
Yeah. And I say to everybody now, whatever it is, just read the side effects so you know, and you can tell your family, right, possible side effects are such and such. So they're aware. But also, when you have a med review with the doctor, you can say, right, I had this side effect, this side effect, this side effect. But you'd only know what to tell him if you've read the literature to know what the side effects are.
I'm also interested in the stats there: 1 in 1,000, 1 in 200, 1 in 20,000, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's only going to come from a bit of market research after people take the drug.
Yeah.
And how many times have we been asked? I mean, I don't take pharmaceuticals anymore, but how many times have you ever been asked to take part in a survey to say, did you have any of these after taking that?
Yeah. Once in my life.
Right.
Once in my life, which was when I was in my 20s, and I'm 58 now.
So that was it 1 in 1,000 of violence?
1 in 1,000 violent tendencies.
So that could be 10, 20, 30 in 1,000.
Yeah,
but also you said it right. You said 1 in 1,000, but someone's got to be the 1,000.
Someone's going to be the one.
Someone's got to be the one.
Yeah, it's not maths, is it? It's not going to be the first one does.
Yeah, the first one does. The rest are all right. Yeah, you're all fine.
Someone in the mix somewhere is going to get that. Now, and if you push it back to antidepressants and another side effect, which always seems to bother young men more than women, right? Whenever I talk about it, a lot of antidepressants and other drugs can affect your sex drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. So while you're on it, you lose your sex drive. Now, whenever I talk about that, young men in their 20s seem to be really bothered. But this report I mentioned last year, which said that quite often with some drugs, even when you stop, you keep the side effects. That can include the sex drive.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a young guy being prescribed something at 20 and your sex drive is really important to you, you'd want to know that there's a possible chance, one, you could get a side effect,
right.
But two, it's now been shown that in all cases you don't necessarily lose the side effects. Doesn't mean you wouldn't take the medication, but you should absolutely know that.
You should, right, so it boils down to this. every single medication that you take has a section of truth attached to it. Yeah. Right? This is not subjective. It's not a story. No. It's a level of truth. Yeah. But where there's truth without conscious thought or knowledge, there is nothing. There's no knowledge. There's no teaching. Yeah. And I think this is the single most important push with medication at this point.
Yeah. What we're going to add to that, the next version I touched on earlier, the question I get asked a lot, we created that for antidepressants. Yeah. And it was after we created version 1, we started learning about all these other medications. It's not much of an update. It's going to have a QR code in there, which will take you to our website with a list of all the medications that have suicide as a potential side effect. Okay. So people who have got that can scan it and it'll take them to it, because that is a question I'm asked a lot now, which medications. So that can be
for people that already got the medications rather than going back to the box.
Really. Exactly. So people can look and go, oh, okay. Now, as far as I'm aware, if you've been on the medication for 6 months, you're not suddenly going to start getting side effects. No. What I've been told is it's always in that initial period, and it's more likely the younger you are, is what I've been told.
Okay, well, I'm old enough to know better then.
But that worries me with ADHD meds, to be fair. Because I looked for a personal reason. My daughter has got ADHD, and they suggested medication, and so I looked at the one they suggested, and it said 1 in 1,000 chance of suicidal thoughts, right? And my daughter at the time was 13, so me and her mum decided she's not going on him, and we done other things to help her, and she's fine. Good. But that was a conscious choice we made. As soon as I saw that, I was mortified.
Yeah, but was that? The different conscious, educated choice.
Yeah.
Which, if you hadn't have walked down this road, you'd have just taken the doctor.
Take the pills. The doctor says take the pills. It's only because I'm in the space and know a bit about it.
So we're very lucky that we get to work in this space and we're educated in with that. So that luck needs to be passed down the line. I need to ask a question that might get us removed from YouTube forever, but I'm going to ask it. Funnily enough,
go for it.
So obviously these are all made by pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
But if you look at it at face value, the pharmaceutical companies aren't hiding anything.
No,
they're writing these scripts.
It's there, black and white.
Right.
So everything.
No, don't start. I meant for the medication. So for those of you saying, well, that's another big pharma thing. Yeah, all right. It doesn't have emblazoned on the front of it, this is suicidal thought inducing, because it's not.
No.
But if you take anything from this, right? Take the fact that read the side effects, scare yourself into knowledge. Yeah. And when you hear that somebody else, like a lot of our friends say, oh, I've got to try this new antidepressant. So my first reaction now is going to be, please read the side effects. And that's all it takes. Is our community talking to the community around us, who then talk to their communities, all of their friends. Now, the way that communities work is supporting each other. So therefore, understand you've heard truth here today. You know, the prescription safe plan means that if you get somebody in your circle of friends who has said, I'm taking new medication, and they start acting differently, pull them on it.
Yeah.
Get them to look at what they're taking, but also get them just to nip back to their GP. I know going to a GP is a nightmare.
It's tough.
Right, but do it, because you can get through, especially with the app system. Right, so you book you tell the place what's wrong with you, and then the safekeeper on the front of it, the receptionist,
like the triage.
Triage, don't you? A triage, I wish, but So listen, it is worth talking to your GP. It is worth exacerbating. No, it's absolutely getting inside these bits of paper. I'm going to borrow this.
Just know what you're taking.
Is that even on camera?
It is now,
Right. These are mostly side effects for an acne medication. And all right, this is given to you by specialists. But every medication comes with one of these.
And the thing is, it's important. Every medication, most medications have some form of side effect, right? So antibiotics, we all know, can upset your stomach, right? Nightmare. You can have the throaty bits, and it's a nightmare. And we all know that's all right. You just put up with it because it'll get rid of your thing, right? But you also, a lot of people know, if you get a rash when you start taking an antibiotic, you should go back to your doctors, because the next time you take that antibiotic, it could generate an allergic reaction to the antibiotic. Right? Now, a lot of people do know that with antibiotics, right? So
there'd be a lot of people who don't know.
To be honest, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking people probably know about the upset stomach. They might not know about the rash bit, but it will say it when you read the literature that if you get a rash, go back and showing the rash. So every medication, we just need to know what we're doing and what the possible side effects could be.
So, being one of the laziest human beings on earth, I've never looked at my medication descriptions.
Yeah.
From now on, I am going to. Yeah. And I'm going to go home tonight and look at the 560 pill bottles.
Maybe wait till tomorrow morning.
That's another reading.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to get a night's sleep first. Then I've got to go to work at juggling. Right, so after I've done that, so I don't get any badness, I'm going to look. I want everyone to realise that we can all help each other with this. We've run out of time, as usual.
Can I ask one more question?
Is it important?
Yeah, it is very important.
Okay, go.
In terms of this prescription safe plan, is any element of it related to the potential dangers of taking an overdose of that specific tablet as well? Is there anything?
Not specifically.
Right.
Not specifically, no. This was initially created to highlight the suicidal...
Just the suicidal tendencies.
That was what it was initially created for. But like we've said, there's so many possible side effects to different medications, and you're right, storing them up to do something with them later is yet another issue. So there could be further additions. The next one's going to be the QR code with a list of meds, and then we'll see.
I think without, this might sound a bit blasé, but without sounding that, just understand that taking multiple past doses of your medication is a very bad thing to do. Even ibuprofen, Nurofen, stuff like that. Should you take more than the dose, you're at risk of damaging your liver and your kidneys. Well, so just be careful with every level of dose.
You're right, and this is a real minor thing, but anti-inflammatories, right? They have a thing called NSAIDs in them. Right now, it doesn't give you suicidal thoughts or anything, but some people are on anti-inflammatories for years because they got chronic back problems. NSAIDs damage your kidneys. Right, so prolonged use, constant prolonged use, will reduce your kidney function as you get older. And I actually know somebody personally who's in that situation because of back damage. Their kidney function at the age of 62 is now 54%, caused by years of taking anti-inflammatories and the NSAIDs within it. Do you know what I mean? So every medication does good things, but you have to be aware of the other stuff as well.
A rule of thumb is anything that's really, really good for you or does something good has also going to have bad connotations for you. Have a little look at the seesaw involved in all that. Chris, thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
I want everyone to understand that projects like this and drugs all come with this. And it might be the best thing for you, so don't not take anything, but understand the real full picture. When you are prescribed something new, it is your responsibility to read the blurb, understand what you're getting into, and if you have questions, go back to your GP and make them answer them. 15 Coping, we'll see you next time.